Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. I decided to just sit down today and film a random video because I'm stuck at home like most of you hopefully are as well. It is currently March and we are on stay-at-home orders because of the whole coronavirus and everything like that, so I'm not at school or anything. And I asked over on Instagram like a week ago some things that you guys would want to see, and something that kept coming up, and actually it's come up a lot like in the past too, and I don't know why I've never filmed a video, and if I have, I don't remember that I have. Also, Axel's over here being extremely annoying with this ball, so hi. Yeah, you're being annoying. But I looked back at my channel and I don't see if I've ever filmed one of these, so if I have, I'm just gonna film it again, I guess. But it is all about my student teaching experience. And I'm it's more just like a story time because I've actually already filmed this video, and I didn't really talk too much about like my experience with student teaching. Like, you're not gonna get like good like information out of me right now. It's more just like a story time. But the whole video is unfocused. So we're here again. I've got a sparkling water. This is the new AHA ones. I think these ones are from Coke, I think. Oh yeah, Coca-Cola. It's the orange and grapefruit flavor. It's actually pretty good. This is the first one I've tried. So I'm still not drinking coffee or anything. I just don't really want it still. But I'll take all this sparkling water. So anyway, I am on my 6th year of teaching. So I student taught like about 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago. And I did it in 2 different classrooms. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the whole thing. So I was in a credential program at a state school here in California, and in the earlier video I said this, but the first day that you found out, so you started student teaching in December. So you started the program. Oh my gosh, I'm already getting myself mixed up. So the program was a year long, the whole credential program, and you started it in the fall quarter, and then it ended in like June or whatever. It was 3 quarters long, and we were supposed to start student teaching in December. So you went for like 2 weeks, and then right before Christmas break, and then you came back from break, and then you continued your other and I can't remember if it was 8 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks that we did in all. I said 10 in the last video, but I kind of think I'm confusing it with the student teacher we just had on our team, because hers was 10 weeks, I believe, or maybe hers was 13. I don't even know. I think it was 10 actually. I think it was 2 sets of 10. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I went the first day, and the first, like, the whole big reveal is like a sorority or fraternity bid day. Everyone like comes to this big auditorium, and they called your name. You got like a little slip of paper, and it told you like where you were going and what grade level you were in. It was super exciting, and everyone was like so excited, and it was just like so much fun. And unless you're the person like me who didn't get their name called. And I have the last name that starts with B, so pretty much anything, and I've always had the last name that starts with B even before I was married. So I'm always like in the beginning of groups of things that get like called or anything like that, that's by name, because B. And I never got called. And then they got to the end, and I was like, okay. And they're like, okay, well, if you didn't get called, come up here because we have to talk to you. And I was like, there was probably like 7 of us. And this room is like 100 people probably getting their bids for their student teaching. So I went up there, and they were like, yeah, we don't have a placement for you. So if we don't find one in the next couple days, you won't be able to start student teaching until the winter quarter or the spring quarter or whatever it was, spring quarter, because technically you were student teaching in winter quarter, but because the weeks didn't line up right, that's why you had to start like those 2 weeks before Christmas time, because you had to be able to have like your 10 weeks total, and actually that's what it was. And then you were actually technically student teaching in the winter and then in the spring. So they said, if we can't find a placement for you, you won't have enough weeks, so you'll have to start in the spring. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. So my really good friend in the program, her mom was actually a teacher. We actually grew up in the same town. We still had lived in the same town because we both lived with our parents still. And she got a position a student teaching position at the school that we had both gone to growing up. Her mom actually also worked there, and that was the school I was trying to get to because it was super close to my parents' house. I went there as an elementary student, and that was just where I was trying to get into, but I was open to anything. And So she actually got a spot there and I did not. So her mom worked there though, and she was like, oh my gosh, like I would take Vanessa. I don't care. Like I've had tons of student teachers. And she's, you know, she's been teaching for a really long time. And so it was like a perfect match. And I love her mom. So I was like, oh yeah, that would be so much fun. And so I called them and I was like, hey, I have somebody who's willing to take me. Like she literally can start tomorrow. And they were like, yeah, no, it's not gonna work. You can't pick your own placement. And I was like, okay, so you can't find me a placement. I found a placement for myself, but if you don't find a placement for me, you still won't let me take this placement, and then I won't be able to student teach until like whatever spring semester or spring quarter starts, which is a long time from now, which is gonna push back my program anyway. And they were like, yeah, pretty much. And I was just like, okay, well, sounds great. So I got off the phone and I was just like, I was sitting there thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to start throwing a fit because this is like not okay that they're gonna push back my whole entire program because of the fact that they just won't let me pick. And so many, and then what makes me mad is I have so many friends now who I've talked to who are like, oh yeah, I picked who my master teacher was gonna be. And I'm like, so many programs allow you to do that and it wasn't like, it's not a big deal at all. So anyway, so they ended up calling me a few hours later and they were like, hey, we found you a position at a site in this city. Do you want it? And I was like, well, obviously. So it was a super big pain in the butt because my house was like central and the class or the school that I was student teaching at was like 30 to 40 minutes east of my house. And then my university was like 40 minutes minimum west of my house. So I was having to go all the way out to my student teaching school, student teaching during the day, and then drive all the way to the university, which was now at that point like getting close to like an hour 15 away from there to there, and having to go there at night. And it was just a lot of like extra driving and just a lot. Like I didn't need to be out there because the school that I was going to be at was super close to my house and it would have been really easy. Saying that I was driving a lot and everything was just a lot. And so my actual student teaching position was in a 4th grade class, and it was just okay. Like I don't feel like I learned all that much because the teacher that I was with, she didn't, and nothing against her, she was like a great person and she was a perfectly fine teacher. She just was very different than my teaching style. And at the time I didn't realize that just because I hadn't had my own classroom. But now looking back, I'm like, we had totally different teaching styles. She was very much like, just followed the curriculum. And I also student taught at kind of a weird time because I was right before Common Core had like even become like a thing. It was still in the works. It didn't become a thing until the following school year, and I think even at that point I don't think it was like mandatory. Like a lot of teachers were still just doing their normal stuff, and so I feel like I kind of got gypped because of the fact that I student taught right before kind of like this turn of events in education. And so she was like very just stuck on like, she just followed the curriculum and like didn't do anything extra, and like that was the extent of her teaching. And nothing against her, it's just that's just not the way that I teach, and a lot of teachers, you know, don't teach that way anymore. Back in the day, I feel like that was just the way that you taught. You just followed your curriculum and you went on, and you know, life went on. But with Common Core now, it has changed a lot, and kind of differentiation and all that sort of stuff. So and I think too, maybe in 4th grade she could do that a little bit more. Like I've got students now who like I have to poll for small groups because I have to like help them figure out how to read, whereas in 4th grade I don't know that her like gap was maybe quite as big, and that could have been another reason why. So nothing against her, it was just I don't feel like I learned all that much, and I just felt very like I felt awkward in the classroom because I didn't feel like she necessarily wanted me there, and not in like a way of like she was rude to me or anything like that. I could just tell like she didn't really want a student teacher. She just wasn't that kind of person. She kind of just liked to stay to herself. Like she didn't really talk to anybody on campus, and that's totally fine. Like, you know, nothing bad about that. But just very different from me. Like I love to be friends with people, and I love to, you know, see people around campus and get to know people. and she just wasn't like that. So it was just an okay time, but like I said, I don't really think that I learned much, and I don't know. It was okay. So the next placement that I had was at the same site, and this is where it got a little bit sticky because in California you do, and I don't know if other states have these, I want to say they do, not every state, but like some states, or I'm sure you do something similar, but we had to do something called the TPAs, and they are performance tasks basically. They're actually, I think, even different now than when I did them. At that time there was 4 of them, and you did them throughout your program. So there was one of them, I still like, the whole university I went to was just honestly kind of a mess because of the whole student teaching thing and then this situation. So I had done one of my TPAs, and I actually failed the TPA. I turned it in, they didn't like it. And most schools, their TPAs go to people in the state and they grade them. My school, the people at our site, or the people at our university graded them, and it was supposedly anonymous as to whose paper it was, but I still to this day don't feel like it was. I had one professor who I'm almost positive had graded my paper, and I don't know why, we just didn't hit it off very well. Like, it's not very often that I don't hit it off with people that well, and she was just one of those people, like, we just didn't hit it off. And I swear to you, I'm telling you, she's the one who graded my paper, and she didn't like what I had done. And it was all about, she was like an ELD, or she was an EL professor, like something to do with like EL classes, and it was the EL TPA, like something that had to do with ELs in some way. I don't remember it all now, but yeah, so to this day, I'm pretty sure she was the one who had graded it. But anyway, so they failed me. They gave me a 2, and you have to have a 3 or a 4. And so you have to redo it. Now, the problem with redoing it is they didn't just fail you because of like editing mistakes, or like, oh, you just need to like rewrite it differently. Because this is like a 20-page document, if I remember correctly. And so I just edited the paper. Like, I just went through, I added some, comments here and there. And I didn't really do much in terms of like changing up what I wrote, because they gave you like a week and a half to rewrite it or to fix it. I couldn't completely change what I'd done because I had studied students, and I had done a lot of stuff in the classroom that led up to this performance task. And so I couldn't just redo the whole thing. And looking back, I should have, but I ended up failing it the second time. So if you fail it and you don't pass the retry or whatever, you couldn't student teach for that quarter. So now we're on spring quarter, and this would have been my second round of student teaching. So I had actually gone, and this is like the most heartbreaking day of my life, one of, if not the most. And I don't say that in like a dramatic way, like literally, it still like makes me upset thinking about it. I had shown up that day for my first day of student teaching in my new classroom, still at the same site, but now in first grade. And teachers prepare for a student teacher, I would imagine. I've never had a student teacher, but I would imagine that teachers have to prepare to have a student teacher in their classroom beforehand. They prepare their students, especially in first grade. And I was supposed to find out that day at lunch, and or around like noon, which ended up being lunchtime. So I kind of went in that day like super nervous because I knew I was going to find out, and I knew that if I didn't pass that I wouldn't be able to stay. And I was like, oh gosh, that's super awkward if I can't. I didn't say anything to the teacher. I just kind of went on my day. I was just observing. In that program, you had to spend 1 or 2 weeks observing. You just sit and observe the class. Help is needed, but you're not really required to do anything. And then you slowly like take on subjects. So you would first like take on maybe like social studies, like something that wouldn't be like all that hard. And then you would take on like another subject, to the point where the last 2 weeks of the program, you are completely teaching the entire class without any support. Well, I guess support, but not like the teachers not stepping in and doing things. So I'd gone that day just observing, sitting, just watching whatever. And I looked at my phone at lunchtime and checked my email, and I'd seen that I did not pass it on the retry. And I had to go to the teacher and say, I'm sorry, but I can't stay. And she was like, what do you mean? And I told her, I explained the whole situation. And I was like, I failed the remake or the redo, and I can't stay to student teach. Like, I have to wait until the fall now. And which, mind you, this is like what, March or April, whenever like spring quarter starts, and I couldn't now student teach until the fall. And I was supposed to finish my program that June, and I was heartbroken. I had even gone back to my master teacher from 4th grade that day before I left, because I had never signed something, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm just leaving now halfway through the day. There's no point in me staying. And so I had gone to her to have her sign something, and I told her what had happened, because she could tell that I was upset. And the other teacher too, she was like super understanding. She was like, oh my gosh, no, I understand. Like, it's okay. Don't worry. Like, I can tell that you're stressed right now. I can tell you're upset about it. Like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And I was just like, I'm sorry. I just feel like really embarrassed about it. And because I've never like done poorly in school. I've always done like kind of just okay in school. I've never done like really bad. I've never done like really, really well. But I've always just kind of like, I've just gotten through school, and I've never had that feeling of like failure. And so I think that's what like hit me the most. I don't know. So I got in my car, and I just like bawled my eyes out. Like, oh my gosh, I was so upset. And so then I spent the next, all the way until fall, just finishing up my classes and working. And then I ended up getting a position. Now, I think everything happens for a reason. I'm a very strong believer in that. And I do think that like it happened for a reason. What that reason was, I don't know, but I do think it happened for a reason. So anyway, so then fall comes around, and I think I only had like one class I had left to take at that point, like at the university. And then I got a new placement again, and actually in 1st grade, but at a school that was actually now in my town, which is where I wanted to be originally. Wasn't at the school that I had originally wanted, which was the one like super close to my house, but it was in my town, and a place that I was familiar with. So during that student teaching experience, I feel like I learned a lot. I actually ended up staying there even longer than I was supposed to. I started, I want to say like 2 weeks after the school year started, and then it ended up maybe a little bit longer than that, like September. And then I ended up staying even 2 weeks after, because the 2 weeks led into Christmas break, and it was just a fun time to be in a 1st grade class. There was like, the Christmas show and different arts and crafts. It was just like a fun time, and I didn't have anything better to do because I couldn't like sub or anything at that point yet. I guess I could have, but no, I guess I could have. But I just was loving like being in there, and I really liked that master teacher. We got along really, really well, and the students really liked me. And I actually ended up long-term subbing in that class the following, like in the springtime. I long-term subbed for like 6 to 8 weeks. She had surgery, and so she was out, and so it was like perfect because I already knew the routine, I already knew everything, and like she just kind of could throw me in there, and she didn't really have to do all that much, which was really nice for her. And she would always say like, this class this year was like more your class than it was mine, because I'd had him like all fall, and then like a good chunk of the springtime as well. So but I do feel like I learned a lot in that class. I still think it was like very different from my my like teaching style now, but I do feel like I learned a lot in there, and it was nice to see a 1st grade class. And I think maybe that's too why I feel like I learned more, because I knew that I didn't want to teach upper elementary at that point. Now I've kind of changed my mind a little bit, but at that time I knew I wanted to teach like 1st grade or 2nd grade, maybe 3rd, but that was kind of like as high as I was willing to go. So that was kind of my experience. And then when I did finish long-term subbing for her, I subbed a little bit after that, for like, I subbed a little bit before, and then I long-term, and then I literally subbed for like a week or two, I think, after, because we were getting married in May. So I didn't sub like too much because we were getting ready for the wedding and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, it was like 2 very different experiences, but I'm here to tell you that if you don't like mesh well with your master teacher, get out of the situation, because there will always be like another place you can go, and whether that be like, or whether that means you have to end up student teaching like at a different time, I feel like it's worth it, because looking back, like, yes, it really, really sucked at that time to not be able to student teach, but I'm also here now, and I'm like, it pushed me back like 6 months, but it wasn't a super big deal, I guess, looking, hindsight 2020. But I've had many, many people who have told me like they did not get along well with their master teacher, and I feel like that kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth as a new teacher, especially if like you're not going to get anything out of that situation. And if they're just like, I've had people tell me like their master teacher was like straight up just like rude to them and like mean to them, and I would not be able to handle that. So luckily I never had that situation, but I've had people who have said like I just couldn't handle it and I had to leave, and I got a new placement and it was fine. But I'm sure your university would be completely open to kind of that discussion if you tell them the reasons that you don't want to be there, whatever the case may be. And if you feel like you can stand it and it's just kind of an okay situation, then maybe make it through. But I don't know, I feel like that's such a big piece of becoming a teacher, is that student teaching experience. And if you have a bad one, I do feel like it's just not, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, to be quite honest. So yeah, so that was kind of my story time for the day about me like leading up to being a teacher and the heartbreak. But looking back now, it's whatever. It still saddens me, but it's whatever. I just don't think about it. So anyway, I hope that you are enjoying some time off. I think literally everyone in the entire country, I think, is out of school right now. So hopefully you are enjoying your time off and getting some stuff done around your house since you're kind of stuck at home. I know I've literally done like everything around my house, and I'm on like 1 week of being home and leaving the house like twice. And yeah, it's rough. I'm not a homebody. I don't like being home. I like to like be out doing things. I like to be around people. I just like interaction. I'm not someone who can just like stay at home like ever. My mom is not like that, and we're never like that as kids, like during the summer. And it's different during the summer because it's like, oh, this is kind of just like a summer break in a way. Like, what do I do over summer? Meaning that, but like over summer you can go places. And right now it wouldn't be that bad if I could go places, but I can't go anywhere. Like, I'm literally just stuck at home. And I get all my work done at like early in the morning, or not early in the morning, but I get it done like within a couple hours of being awake, and then just kind of hang out the rest of the day. So hopefully you're having a decent time at home and getting stuff done and being productive. I will catch you guys in my next video. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. I think I already said that. So bye guys.